Secretary of State Marco Rubio says U.S.-Israel relations remain ironclad as hostage negotiations remain underway. On Monday, Rubio met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Israeli President Isaac Herzog to help free the remaining 48 hostages still trapped in Gaza.
At the end of the day, no matter what has happened or happens, the objective remains the same, and that is all 48 of those hostages, both living and deceased, need to be home. They need to be returned. They never should have been taken. What happened on October 7th was an act of unparalleled barbarism, and what's happened since then have been repeated acts of unparalleled barbarism on the part of Hamas.
Netanyahu thanked Rubio and President Trump for continuing to stand with Israel as other Western nations bend the knee to Islamic terrorism.
Your presence here in Israel today is a clear message that America stands with Israel. You stand with us in the face of terror, in the face of the incredible, I would almost say, Middle Ages lies that are directed against us, the rising antisemitism in the world, and the really the weak governments that are putting pressures on us because they collapse under the pressure of Islamist minorities.
Both the U.S. and Israel remain committed to combating Jew hatred and freeing the remaining hostages, but there may be some disagreement on how to achieve those goals. During their talks, Rubio said he hoped Qatar could still play an active role in hostage negotiations, despite hosting Hamas leaders for years.
We have strong relationships with our Gulf allies. We work very closely with them on a number of things. We've been engaged with them. We've been engaged with them consistently before what happened and after what happened. And ultimately, the point we will make to everybody is that some fundamentals still remain.
This comes as Israel conducted a precision strike on Hamas leaders in Doha, where the initial reports said they took out at least 5 members of the terrorist regime. Israel immediately took responsibility for the attack on Hamas, saying those who planned the worst attack on the Jewish people since the Holocaust cannot remain in power. Netanyahu did not rule out future strikes to wipe out Hamas members living abroad.
I'll tell you what the impact of the strike is. We sent a message to the terrorists. You can run, but you can't hide, and we'll get you.
However, Rubio said their differences on Qatar will not harm the U.S.-Israel relationship. Nathaniel Manor, One American News.
Remember October 7th. That's what he said. It's like, remember the Alamo, remember October 7th. And we remember. We remember the savagery, we remember the incredible massacre of the innocents. We remember our hostages, and we're committed to bringing all of them home, the living and the dead. And we appreciate all the help that President Trump and you have given us in this sacred task. We remember Hamas, and we know that we must defeat them and ensure that they no longer are enabled to turn Gaza into a threat to Israel. They no longer should be there. Your presence here in Israel today is a clear message that America stands with Israel. You stand with us in the face of terror, in the face of the incredible, I would almost say, Middle Ages lies that are directed against us, the rising antisemitism in the world, and the really the weak governments that are putting pressures on us because they collapse under the pressure of Islamist minorities and incredible vilification. I want to thank you personally for your unwavering support of Israel's right to defend itself, for standing firmly against those who seek to isolate and demonize our nation. And I'd like once again to extend our deepest gratitude to a great friend of Israel, a personal friend of mine, President Donald J. Trump. The President has shown consistent leadership, moral clarity, and bold actions that have strengthened the alliances between our nations as never before. The American-Israeli alliance has never been as strong as it is now. And the President has been an outstanding global leader. He's really transforming the world to better all of us. And I can again repeat what I've said time and time again. He's the greatest friend that Israel has ever had in the White House.
As far as the President's been clear on the ongoing issues in Gaza, and that is that every single hostage, both living and deceased, needs to be home immediately. Hamas can no longer continue to exist as an armed element that threatens the peace and security, not just of Israel, but of the world, and that the people of Gaza deserve a better future, one that cannot begin until Hamas is eliminated and until all of the hostages, both living and deceased, are home. And he remains committed firmly to that objective. And that's what we seek to talk about today, have talked about today, and will continue to talk about, and that is the road forward on how to achieve those things. Those objectives remain. Those objectives remain in place. Beyond that, obviously, we cooperated and were involved together just a few weeks ago on the issue of Iran and Iran's desire to possess not just nuclear weapons, but short and mid-range missiles with the capability of threatening our presence here in this hemisphere, in this region, and of course the safety and security of the Jewish state. But I would venture to say a threat that actually extends well beyond that to the kingdoms of the Gulf and eventually even into Europe. In fact, some of the missiles they're trying to develop now can already range countries in Europe. And so a nuclear Iran governed by a radical Shia cleric that possesses not just nuclear weapons potentially, but the missiles that could deliver those weapons far away is an unacceptable risk, not just for Israel, not just for the United States, but for the world. And that is that's why the President continues with our campaign of maximum pressure. There will continue to be maximum economic pressure on Iran until they change course. That's why we are encouraged to see our partners in Europe begin the process of snapping back sanctions on Iran. They are clearly out of compliance with what was already a flawed deal to begin with, and we encourage them to continue down that road. We 100% support that. That is exactly what needs to happen, and we remain firmly committed, as I said, to the President's objective, which he's been abundantly clear on, and I want to repeat. At the end of the day, no matter what has happened or happens, the objective remains the same, and that is all 48 of those hostages, both living and deceased, need to be home. They need to be returned. They never should have been taken. What happened on October 7th was an act of unparalleled barbarism, and what's happened since then have been repeated acts of unparalleled barbarism on the part of Hamas. Hamas needs to cease to exist as an armed element that can threaten the peace and security of the region, and the people of Gaza deserve a better future, but that better future cannot begin until Hamas is eliminated. That better future and that kind of peace is not even possible until the hostages are released, all of them, every single one. And so that's what we continue to be focused on. That's what the President wants to see happen, and that's what you can count on our unwavering support and commitment to see come to fruition.
Thank you. Thank you very much. About the ramifications of the barbaric murder of Charlie Kirk. So first let me say Charlie Kirk was a tremendous friend of Israel. And he believed and discussed with me how to defend Israel, how to defend Western civilization. He actually wrote a detailed memorandum suggesting how we should do that. He saw our battle as a common one for our common values and our common freedom. He also believed in having free discourse. And he was I think, a great American patriot, a believer in the freedom and liberties that America gave to the world, and a believer in the common foundation of our civilization, which he attached to this city, this country, this land. He was struck down. I think the most important thing is to make sure that his legacy isn't struck down, that it continues to live. Now, you know, some people are irreplaceable. Charlie was 31 years old. My own brother was 30 years old when he fell in the rescue of hostages in Entebbe. And, you know, some of these people come once in a century. But it's their legacy that has to live on. So we're committed, I'm committed, and I know the President, President Trump is committed, and I'm sure that's true of Secretary of State Marco Rubio, to make sure that that legacy lives on. How to address the threats is what you're saying. How do you actually address threats of the poisonous incitement of the people who don't believe in free speech, who believe in the imposition of their views on others, who speak of democracy but actually want to trample democracy into the dust? How to deal with that? I think it's a common problem. I think the world right now, the Western world, America, Israel, are being challenged by extraordinary violence from political opponents within the countries. Extraordinary violence. President Trump has, there's been 2 attempted assassinations on him. One nearly succeeded. I've been targeted myself with death threats, which are pretty much daily. My family is targeted. And so are ministers and public figures. They're harassed. They're threatened in Israel and in America. And this is a challenge to our democracy. Democracy is supposed to be the nonviolent resolution of conflict within a society. Nonviolent resolution. The decisions are made not by bullets, but by ballots. And these people increasingly are more and more violent. And the more they speak of democracy, the more they threaten it. They basically say that the greatest danger to democracy is democracy. You're not going to have the rabble decide. I mean, these people who go to the polls, who are they? We're the enlightened ones. We're raised above that. That's the true democracy. The true democracy is to ensure that there is no democracy. And there's double talk. There's the use of words that mean entirely different things. And that certainly won't derail us. But I'm sure that we should take all the actions independently and jointly to protect our liberties, our way of life, our democracies.